Hey guys, I'm Doctor McFarland, and in this video we're going to talk about mic placement on the Tone Master Pro. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We are diving in deep on the Tone Master Pro, but keep in mind that all these concepts can be applied to every other guitar setup, whether it's a real tube amp or solid state amp and pedals, or any of the digital modeling units out there on the market. So what we need to look at is if you add any amp or cab to your preset, you can click on it, and then we can actually click on the cab as well. And you notice that there is a grid that has a speaker on the left, and they give you the cap edge, the cone, and the cone edge. And there's also a wide array of microphones that we can choose from as well. If you show up to any live venue, you're more than likely going to see an SM57 right on the speaker of the amplifier on stage, or it could be an SM7B or really any other mic. But typically SM57s and 58s are used in a live situation more times than not, and this is just something to expect. Now for my personal ears, I like the RE20 on this particular combo amp just because it sounded a little bit warmer, which really just means the high end is rolled off and is not as bright. But just for the sake of experimentation, let's go ahead and choose an SM57 and see what happens on this cab. So this is the sound that we have. I am playing my Kiesel Lyra, Lyra, and it has Allen Holdsworth pickups. That really means nothing other than they're just a good sounding humbucker with not too much mid-range, and they're not too hot as well. They just they just have a good middle of the road tonality to them. So with that said, as an engineer, let's put on our engineering hats here. When you're in the studio, you can really focus in on the sound that you're getting when you record something, and you're going to notice that when you put the microphone on the cap, which is the center of your speaker, that is the brightest it can sound, okay, or the brightest area of the speaker. And as you go farther away from the cap to the cap edge, to the cone, and to the cone edge, you're going to get darker and darker and darker tones. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now there's another phenomenon called the proximity effect. And that really just means that the closer the source gets to the microphone, the more bass response is going to happen in the signal. So even though you could have a microphone right on the cap, if you put it 0 inches away from the speaker, that is technically the most bass that you're going to get in that position. And then there's a little phenomenon that happens, especially to my ears, messing with the Tone Master Pro, is the farther away the microphone is from the source, or in this case the speaker, the brighter the sound. So the closer to the mic, the more proximity effect and more bass you're going to get, and technically a darker kind of sound. Then as you pull back that microphone, the bass is going to get less, and the high end is going to be perceived as being brighter. So that's a lot of talking. That's really college level, audio engineering 101 kind of stuff. But here on YouTube, you get it for free. So you're welcome. All right. So with all that said, let's go to the brightest sound that we can technically get, which is going to be on the cap and 6 inches away. Okay. So let's just hear what this sounds like. Okay, and that still sounds really good. So let's go to 5 inches now. 4, 3, 2, 1. Half an inch. And then 0 inches. Go all the way back out to 6. Go back to 0. Alright, listen to the bass on this low string versus, okay, so the 0 inches away has more woofiness, more bass response going on, but the 6-inch position has less bass and perceived more high end. But technically, when you have less bass, you're kind of emphasizing the mids and the highs anyway. So it's not like we're intentionally increasing the highs. It's just what our ears perceive when we have less low end. So let that be a lesson to you. All right. Let's go all the way to the darkest option that we have, which is the cone edge all the way at 0%. So if this is the darkest, then going diagonally across to the cap 6 inches away is going to be your brightest. Okay, so dark, bright. Okay, cone edge, here we go. Let's go to the 6-inch position on the cone edge. 0. Okay, so what this is telling me and showing me is I can choose a very dark part of the speaker, which is the cone edge, and still get less bass just by moving the microphone back away from the actual source, which is the speaker. So with that said, let's now go back to the cone edge. Let's just keep it at 0 inches away from the speaker, and let's go from cone edge to cone to cap edge to cap. Let's just see what happens now. Okay, so here's the cone edge. Cone. Cap edge. And the cap. Okay, so if any of those sounded halfway decent to your particular ears, then congratulations, you've now honed in on the sound of what it actually sounds like when a microphone is right up on a speaker, but in different positions, okay? So let's just say, for example, we really liked the cap edge area, but it's still a little too much low end. Let's actually pull the microphone back to about 2 inches here. Okay, versus the 0 inch mark. Okay, so for years, this is a little secret, I had an impulse response. It was an M160 microphone on a greenback kind of speaker cab, and it was 2 inches away from the cap edge. And that's what I had installed in my headrush for a very long time, okay? But that's just a sound that I grew to know very well, and this should really be no different, okay? Let's go one extra step here, and notice that we do have a low cut and a high cut option. Now, through this whole example, I've had the low cut at 80, and I've had the high cut at 6 kilohertz. So let's actually roll it up all the way, and then the low cut all the way down. So now we're not filtering any low end at all, and we're not filtering any high end. We're only just hearing what's coming straight off the microphone. So back to 2 inches on the cap edge. Okay, still sounds really good. If we want to roll up the low cut filter to around maybe 100 hertz, this would not be a bad idea. And then do the same thing with the high cut. We're going to roll it down to, let's just do it at 10 right now. Okay, let's keep going down to maybe like 6. Okay, so essentially what we're doing here is we're first allowing the microphone to be moved around and kind of hone in on a certain frequency response that we're getting on the relationship between the mic and the speaker. And then we're adding an additional layer of filtering. So we're taking out some low end and we're taking out some high end, because the vast majority of actual physical speakers starts rolling off around 5 to 6K anyways. So a lot of the information that you hear in your favorite guitar recording, whether that's metal, rock, country, pop, blues, whatever you're hearing, more than likely it's not spitting out any frequencies higher than the 5 to 6K range. So by going ahead and cutting off the top end, you're just ensuring that you're getting the typical response that you would be hearing if you had a physical speaker in the room and not just listening through headphones or studio monitors. Okay? And that's really the last thing we need to talk about in this video, is when you do have the speaker in the room experience, i.e. actually plugging into a tube amp or a solid state amp or just really any amp at all, you are more than likely either sitting, relatively close to the amp, so your ears are a little bit higher than the amp and the amp is usually on the floor, or you're actually standing and maybe the amp is behind you, or it could be off to your side. And you could have a drummer in the same room with the bass player and a singer that also maybe plays acoustic guitar. And maybe you have a keyboard player in your band and just all kinds of other instruments that are filling up that frequency range that our ears are now taking in all that information. And your guitar sound is just one little piece of that puzzle that's making up the entire frequency range. So it's very, very fun to play by yourself and maybe dial in a really chunky rock or metal tone and with tons of low end, scooped mid-range, all the stuff, right? But really that kind of sound does not do very well in a full band experience. So if you can learn to hone in, dial in your guitar sound to where you're naturally filtering the low end at least to 100 hertz, maybe up to around 120 or 150, depending on the kind of sound that you're going for, and then definitely cutting off the high end around that 5 to 6K range. Then the next time you go to band practice or play your live gig, you will notice that your sound fits so much better in with the band than you would notice when you were just playing by yourself, either in your bedroom, living room, studio room, practice room, whatever pleasure room that you have. Okay? So, with all that said, that's just one microphone. Okay? Going from the darkest point up on the top left to the brightest point on the bottom right. That's all with an SM57 mic. So now if we change the mic to maybe an R121, which is an actual ribbon microphone, which naturally has less high end than an SM57, which tends to accentuate the mid-range of the source it's capturing, then now we have to start all over and get a totally different sound. So once again, let's take off the low cut. We're going to take off the high cut. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm trying to teach right now. Okay, so just stick with me to the end of this video and you might actually learn something. So maybe you already know this, but just go with me. Okay, so R121, let's put it back on the cap at 0 inches. Okay, here we go. So that's a very bright sound relatively to the mic that we're using, but it's also closest to the source, so it's going to get a lot of that proximity effect. So let's pull it back to the 6-inch range, and let's hear how the sound changes. And just by pulling the mic back, we've already cleared up a lot of that low end that was initially there in the source. So let's listen to the 0-inch again. Okay, let's go to the cap edge, that 2-inch away position, which I typically like. And if we want it a little bit brighter, we can just go back farther from the mic. Pretty good. And that's a really good sound as well. We can mess with low and high cuts, but let's just go one more microphone example. And another really good one that you'll see John Mayer use. I mean, tons of other live engineers and live performers like using this mic is the SM7B. And we'll go back to the cap with 0-inch away position. Here it is. Okay, even though we started with the same position as the Royer 121, we naturally have a little less bass because the ribbon mic naturally has a lot of low end in the proximity effect and also has less high end. So just by changing the mic, we're naturally EQing the sound by the characteristics that the mic is giving us. So let's go to the 6-inch away position. Back to 0. Okay, let's go to cap edge, 2 inches away. That's pretty good. Let's go to 6 inches. Okay, too bright. Let's go back to 2. Guys, I like what I'm hearing right here. So even though the amp and the speaker have a certain sound in the room, once you put a microphone in front of it, you are drastically filtering that sound just by the mic choice. So with all this said, you can pick any cab, you can pick any one of these microphones that is in the ToneMaster Pro, and each one is just going to be different. Okay, it's not going to be night and day, like, oh my gosh, this is the best sound I've ever heard. Because once you go and change the cab or the mic and mic position, now what you've been accustomed to for maybe the last 5 to 10 minutes of playing, your ear now has to get used to this new sound that you've created, and you either like it or you don't. So I hope this has been helpful. It has been a little long, but we're just having a little private lesson just between you and me and the rest of the internet here. So thanks guys for watching. If you have enjoyed this kind of information, then please feel free to subscribe down below, click the bell. And as always, this video is sponsored by Zounds.com. They're the ones that provided the ToneMaster Pro for me to use and review and make videos with. And without them, I couldn't make this happen. So thank you to Zounds.com for all their support. And if you want to help support me any further, then please check out the Zounds affiliate down in the description below. And also check out my website for the Ultimate Access Bundle, where you can learn about music theory, recording, and download tons of presets for all kinds of units. And I would greatly appreciate it. So we will see you guys in the next video. I am Dr. McFarland. Keep rocking.